All right. Well, here we are. Welcome to February, just like that. We're 2 months into the new year, and although we are technically recording this not in February, we're going to bring the energy of moving through the rest of our winter season as we start to hike our way up into maybe not more warmth, at least where I am, but some more light at least. So welcome to this month's issue of the Practice Corner podcast. I have with me my lovely friend, Sam. And see, I even asked you before how to pronounce your last name, and I've already forgotten. Sam, tell me your full name.
Sam Ibarguen.
Thank you, Sam Ibarguen.
Yeah.
I just know her as Sam. Like she's the only Sam in my life.
Totally.
The other Sam was my mama, and I've met this Sam not too long after my mama passed, and I just love this intersection of having that name back in my life as a friend and a colleague and a client and a bunch of other fantastic things, community member, fellow leader, heart-centered energy worker, the huge inside of this space. So I invited Sam to come into this podcast because I just think the way she shows up is unapologetic, discerned, clear, and even when she's in the muck and the mud of all the questions she's like, yeah, that does happen around business and callings and what the am I doing? I just see her find this tenacious spirit that says, I'm going to go forward no matter what, even if I'm rumbling in whatever muck and chaos comes with that going forward. And I really have come to deeply appreciate that about her and the way that she shows up in the world. So Sam, thank you for joining us. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you.
Thanks for having me, Andrea. It's awesome to be here.
Good. I have gotten to know her over the last, I'd say, year and a half. And we we did this funny little, we kind of danced around each other for a little bit, like we'd come in and then go out and then come in and then go out. I was like, what is with this Sam girl? Like, I know we're supposed to work together. We're supposed to have some kind of contact, but it's just not the time. And then when the time hit, it was like, both of us just dove in head first, completely hearts open, ready to engage in this work in whatever way called both of us forward. And I've had the pleasure of coaching her and teaching her, but I feel like there's this mutual relationship in terms of the work that we're both doing in the world. And I deeply appreciate having a fellow light worker sister around me at all times. So
thank you.
Introduce your work for us. I like to let my guests do that. I think it's best from your own words, what it is you do these days in the world. And then we'll go back a little bit and talk about what we got here.
Yeah. So I'm an energy healer. I'm actually certified in Brennan Healing Science. I went to the Barbara Brennan School of Healing over 10 years ago now. My practice has been open for 10 years. And so first and foremost, I really resonate with that work. And I come to my work as an energy healer because what I do now is that I teach, I like to say soulpreneurs and solopreneurs. I teach soulpreneurs how to launch or up-level their service-based work in the world. So I basically teach people like you and I how to turn their passion into a lucrative business that can actually support their life, where they can, quit their job or quit their part-time job and actually move fully into doing the work that they love in the world. How do you find clients? Who are your clients? How do you market? How do you get out there? How do you feel safe in being seen? Where do you find the inspiration to go and be visible? And then how do you have, what is the structure? How do you have a sales conversation that feels amazing where both parties walk away with either a clear yes or a clear no? There's no manipulation. It's like up front and center. It's full of integrity. It's how my clients are anyway. And I just teach them, for all of us in our training, in our certification, we got to have the training of our passion, right? So we graduate as yoga teachers or coaches or healers or therapists or acupuncturists, whatever it is that we're doing. And the experience of most of us is that we just didn't get the business training. So we're out in the world. One of my favorite stories is when I graduated from Brennan, my supervisor at the time was like, listen, Sam, your clients are not going to be lined up. I was in New York City. I got my office space and hung my shingle. And she's like, your clients are not going to be like beating down the door from day one. And I didn't believe her. I was like, of course, but what do you mean? This is divinely guided. Like, I'm an energy healer now. Like, isn't that the way that it works? And of course, that wasn't my experience. And, from day one, I've had to pay attention and show up and talk about what I do. And there's been ebbs and flows, in my own experience of my ability and availability to do that. But it's like, how do we go from, I'm reading Barbara's books until 3 a.m. crying because I so deeply resonate with the material that's in the books. How do we go from that to actually being able to do it in the world and have like a paycheck from that coming in, so that you're showing up, you have your office space, and you're like, boom, this is the difference that I'm making in the world through my work.
I love what you just said, and I think it could easily be skipped over, but I want to hone in on it. You said, how is it that this work doesn't just magically happen when we're doing considered
Right.
divinely guided work, which I feel similar. I'm like, I'm following my purpose, universe. If you want me to do this, you're going to have to supply some clients, because otherwise I can't help. And it's almost
exactly
right. And that's that part of us that feels almost a sense of indebtedness, like, hey, I answered my calling, isn't my reward success? And it's so interesting to me that that isn't a given. It's absolutely not a part of the package, not necessarily. It doesn't mean you're not meant to succeed. It just means there's some other steps along the way other than desirability.
Yes, very true. Very true. I mean, we can talk, well, I mean, I just want to go right into that, right?
Go.
Because that's exactly, I mean, so what I think and what I have found, in both my own experience and my experience with clients is that, if you had told me 10 years ago that I would be doing the kind of work that I'm doing now, and that I've been asked to look at the places inside of myself that I have had to, I probably, because of who I am, and I think this is probably true for most people, I probably would have continued to say yes to the journey. But the journey is not at all what I thought it was going to be. And so, and I think we'll probably talk about this, several times in this conversation. But I think that really what we are called to do, I think all of us who hold space for other people, as healers, as coaches with integrity, I think that we are really called to find our deepest, clearest truth. And so much of that comes from our own healing journey. So, and how that appears is fear, discomfort, terror, paralysis, and moving forward, inability to perceived inability to do the thing that is next for you to do. Or if clients aren't coming, if you're trying to fill a program, why isn't that happening? Ultimately, where are you not telling your own deepest truth? And when you get to that, it's inspiring. Before you get to that, it's really scary, because your only experience is that, like, the clients aren't coming and the money is not coming.
Right.
So that can be really terrifying.
Yeah. Well, when we overly focus on out here and all this place that we can touch and grab onto, we're seeing something that's already happened. So it isn't a great indication of what's possible. In fact, it's not an indication at all of what's happening, because it's past happenings in the visible space, which is, it's results. It's the final destination in the cycle of energy. It's the last place we land is anything tangible. And I see so many of my clients in business and students and just people who I walk this path with, who are constantly making choices inside their own perspectives and perceptions and even attachments to their work from what they're seeing outside of themselves. And then they wonder why they're slogging through this constant loop of same over same over same over same. And I think because we can't see it, like, we can't see your perspective, we can't see your mindset, we can't see your energetic attachment to the work that you're doing. And so I think it's easy to focus out here. But in your own experience, what has focusing in here tangibly done later down the road for you?
I mean, it's, we were just talking about this a little bit. It's literally a direct connection to being able to work, right? Because, and that's always the first stop for all of us. It's like, if clients don't come, then we can't do what we love.
Yeah.
Right. And then from there follows the money, right? Because then if clients are hiring us, then number one, we get to work, we get to do the work with them and hold space as they get the results in their life, or whatever it is that you do, however it is that you work with clients. And then number two, you get paid. So it literally translates right into your business. It literally translates into your day-to-day of everything that you're stepping into this for.
Right.
right? Being able to do your work and then being able to get paid for it, which also feels really good.
Yes. Yeah. It
Yeah.
feels immensely good.
Yeah.
It's very validating.
Yeah.
And when you
Yeah.
haven't had that, or you haven't had enough of that, we've all been there. You've been there. I've been there. We still have moments of that in each of our own businesses. How easy it is to just take it all away from ourselves. And it breaks my heart because we don't actually know what's on the horizon. We don't really get to decide that. We just have to decide if we're committed to it or not.
Yeah. I mean, what just came in was like, well, that's where surrender comes in, and I think, we talk, we're, especially in the spiritual community, we throw that word around a lot. We talk about that word, a lot. And I think that if you had told me that I would really be exploring, my own edge and the edge of surrender, and truly, 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 especially like that last year and this year, truly what it feels like to have to, and want to, and know that the next step is to take a step forward, right? Metaphorically, and to just trust that bridge is going to be up under my foot. That that's been some of the edgiest, work that I've done. And I think that speaks to like when you're not necessarily seeing the clients coming in, or when you're not necessarily seeing yourself being met, you still have to, you have your commitment and you still have to move forward into it.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. I just finished a really lovely book called The Five Invitations, and it's a book about a man who ran a hospice center. And so the book is all it's kind of sad, but also really incredible in that he's inviting you into living a more intentional life by learning what happens when we die, and having witnessed so many people pass away with a lot of intention and integrity, but also some deaths that were not so lovely, and what it
Mm,
taught him about living. And he talks about surrender from a place of exhaustion. Like we
mm,
surrender when we really just are at our wits' end, and we really don't have
absolutely.
an ounce of effort left to give, but we're still
Oh,
committed. And ironically, that's when like all the magic happens, is in that exhausted, okay, you know what? I don't know, but I'm not leaving the path, but I really
yeah.
don't know where my footing is right now. So I'm waving the
Yeah.
white flag. And then suddenly things happen.
Yeah, I like to say, in I laugh with my friends about this, but I like to say that like I'm really in my best moment of surrender when I've just tuckered myself out.
Yes.
When I just like, like I happen to be like pretty type A, pretty much in my head, like I'm constantly sort of trying to do like the mental math about everything. I want to know what's going to happen before it's going to happen. Like, it's funny because as an energy healer, like I'm not like I mean, I'm pretty chill in certain ways, but I'm also out in the world. Right. And so like
Mhm.
a lot of my clients, I just kind of want to like feel safe and know what's going to happen before it's going to happen. And, when I try to micromanage the process, especially as your work gets more, well, as you grow, as you hold more space, as you start to work with more people, you can't necessarily control all of the moving parts. As you get these
Mhm.
big ideas, you're not going to be able to control, right, to micromanage
Mhm.
all of your projects. And so that's when you really have to lean towards, and this is something that I teach a lot and I do almost every single day, just really centering in. And what I teach my clients specifically is centering into the dimension inside of your energy field where the energy of your intention is held.
Mm.
And so if you ever have done any martial arts, or if anyone who's listening has read any of Barbara Brennan's work, it's the dimension of the hara. And it's the lower dantian, right? The lower belly, where we're equipped to hold the majority of a lot of the mental energy that we hold in our mind when we're shutting down in our mind. What I
Mm.
do with my clients and what I do with myself is just drain that down into the pelvic bowl, into the lower belly, into the area of that lower dantian. And then we're more in touch with our intentionality, which is of course a much more powerful and easeful place
Yeah.
than
Yes.
the auric field, which is more the realm of our thoughts and our emotions. So it can feel, when things are really going crazy, it can feel like you are inside of a storm of your own making and a storm of your own life. And
Yes.
dropping below the auric field into the dimension of where your intention lives in your human energy field, you're dropping beneath the storm or into the eye of the storm. And so you're really in the now moment.
Mm. Mm.
And
Wow.
so sorry, like just to finish
Mhm.
that thought. So I talk about that because that's the place where I go when I'm really surrendering.
Mm.
I go into no mind, and then I just open up to the wisdom of, myself as my inner being, myself as, infinite possibility and infinite intelligence,
Yeah.
and really tap into the quantum possibility of like, okay, I don't know what to do right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm either scared and confused, or I'm not scared and confused, but I just don't really know what to do. Give me the next good idea, and then I get it. And if I follow it, it's blissful. And if I don't, I'm holding myself back, and I don't advise that. Just go with it.
Oh, yeah. For you, what is the balance between surrender to that place of your deep intention and getting shit done?
Well, gosh, you and I have talked about this a lot. I think the reality is that I have a business, I have a practice, and it pays for my life. I live off of what I do. And so there is a part of me that feels like, and I think this is true, that it feels like I'm really caring for myself when I, for example, especially since we're in, sort of the beginning of the year, in December, I took some time and also taught this as a masterclass to plan my year. And so it's like, what does my private practice look like? What do my groups look like? What is the the scheduling? What am I going to be marketing? What am I going to be offering? What can I handle and when? And sort of putting all of that on a calendar. And that to me feels I'm creating the structure, right, for my business. That feels really responsible. It feels like I'm taking care of myself. It feels like I'm taking care of my business, and I'm taking care of my clients, because there's clarity there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think really that's one of the distinctions. It's like you have your structure. It's like you have what you're going for. And then you can have inside of the structure, you get to have the flow of creativity, right? And I know that a lot of people talk about this, where you have like the banks of the river, and then the river flows in between the banks. And so then what happens inside of the structure, how it is that you fill your groups, what inspiration comes to you, how it is that you surrender to the day-to-day or week-to-week or even moment-to-moment impulses. Do you want to go and do a Facebook video? Do you feel like you need to talk to social media and tell them what this group is like? Or is there something particularly that you want to share in that moment? That's, I think, where the surrender piece comes in, where you can meditate for 20 minutes in the morning and just ask Spirit, hey, Spirit, what's the best thing for me to do today in order to fill this group? How can I reach the people who are looking for me, and who are looking for the work that I have to offer?
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the ways to strike that balance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like you have, and I know this about you, but for those who are new to your work, it sounds like you have a pretty congruent relationship with that part of yourself. This level of like trust that if I ask an open-ended question of my higher self, my wise self, my whatever collective consciousness, I will receive some sort of actionable advice or guidance. For those who are not so comfortable with that relationship, but who want to be, right? Who maybe are like, I really want that because it sounds so easy and it sounds so yummy, but I don't even know what it is. Where do we start? Where do we begin?
Oh gosh. I have to say, I sometimes I get answers and sometimes I don't.
Yeah.
And when I get answers, I'm so happy about it. I'll just say this. When I get answers, it's because everywhere in my life that I feel like I am called to take action or do something in a certain direction, I am generally doing that. I'm generally in the stream. So I am already open. So what I'll say to our listeners is, if there is something that is right there, and I feel like we haven't talked about this, Andrea, but I feel like you do this too, where it's like you have your desk and it's like, what are your notes that you have for you to do that day? Even if it's like, apply for this really big conference that it's like you're scared shitless and you're like, why would I do that? No, right? Like there's a part of you that's like, too scary. But then there's the bigger part that's like, yeah, no, do that. So do everything that you're called to do, and do everything that's in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
And know that for that day, it's going to be enough. And there's something where it's like you plug all of the leaking holes or something like that, where then you can feel settled enough, or whatever your experience is, that you can open up and then receive guidance. So I
Mhm.
just kind of wanted to, I know that's not exactly the answer to your question, but I just kind of wanted to put that into this space. The other thing that I'll say about it is that it takes practice. So stay really, really easy
Mm.
with yourself and let yourself gain some momentum. Give it a couple of days or a week or even a couple of weeks just to, if you don't have a daily meditation practice, honestly, and like you have resistance, just commit to 5 to 7 minutes in the morning, right? It's the commitment of actually getting on your cushion or getting on whatever it is that you like to sit on and doing it. And, what I think you'll find is that after doing, 5 or 7 minutes for a week, there's so much pleasure in that. And you're building a muscle where you're like, oh, I can do 10 minutes, 10 minutes. It's like, I want to sit now for 10 minutes. And then from 10 minutes, you have 15 minutes, 20 minutes,
Yeah.
a half an hour, if that's something that you want to build up to.
Yeah.
So be easy in the beginning. Don't expect these like profound channeling answers right away, right? Because it's a muscle that you build. And then the other thing that I love to do, I mean, I literally have so many ways of like clearing my mind, because that is one of my own personal biggest challenges. I think, for purposes of this conversation and in this moment, I think a couple of the most powerful ways that you can be in this meditation is, number one, just detach from any expectation of any outcome whatsoever.
Mm.
And the visual that I give to my clients all the time is, imagine that you are out in space and you've got your spacesuit on and everything, all your expectations and everything that you're attached to and everything that you want to know the answers to and everything, all of that, like the grindy stuff, put it in a package in like a cardboard box and wrap this cardboard box with cardboard paper and twine. Like it's like a big old like UPS package. And you're holding it, this is a great visual, and you're holding it in your spacesuit out in space. And in
Mhm.
order to detach from that moment, because everything that you need will come back, right, when you meditate. But in order
Mhm.
to detach, you're literally just opening up your hands. And because you're in zero gravity, you can give
Mm.
the package just the slightest little push in front of you. And it will go jettisoning off in front of you, off into outer space, and it's gone. And you are detached.
Mm.
There are energetics that happen where as soon as you're feeling relief in your body, as soon as you feel like you can breathe better, as soon as you feel your sinuses clear, as soon as you feel like if you opened your eyes, you could see better, those are signs of relief. You are opening up to your own infinite intelligence. That's the very first sign. What you want to get to is a feeling of relief. And then after that, you want to get to satisfaction. And then from there, if you can get to excitement or gratitude or joy, then you know that you're really in the frequency reality, like on the frequency highway of being able to receive those answers that
Mm.
you want to receive from your own inner being or from your own source.
Mm. I
Right. So
love
we're talking about, actually, what I realized that we just did is we're talking about now the dynamics of the law of attraction. So the
Mhm.
law of attraction is literally that the universe will match whatever frequency you're running. So it's harmonics,
Mm.
right? So you have like two guitars in the same room and you pluck the string of one guitar, the same note of the other guitar will start ringing because of the way that frequency runs through the air.
Mm.
And so the law of attraction acts in the same way. So rather than, if you're having a shitty morning, if you're having a bad day, don't lie to yourself and force yourself into gratitude and excitement, because
Yes.
spirit knows, right? Spirit knows. It's like, if no, she's actually scared right
Mm.
now, right? You're not feeling gratitude, you're feeling fear. So
Yeah.
the very first step to that is just to admit it to yourself, right? Like,
Yes.
yeah, I am scared right now. And as soon as the truth is magic. As soon as you tell the truth to yourself,
Mhm.
your whole body relaxes. And it's like, oh, right. I'm allowed to be how I am right now in this moment. It's not going to last forever,
Mm.
but I'm going to admit to myself and I'm going to admit to spirit, like, yeah, I'm scared. And then
Mm.
the next thing that I do and the next thing I advise is just take a quick moment and just feel where you are scared in your body and meet yourself in that place in your body. And what do you need to give to yourself in that moment? How do you need to meet yourself? Because um, our default is to run from the feeling, right? We
Mhm.
want to avoid inconvenient feelings. We want to avoid feelings like, fear or terror, that kind of a thing. And so we want to do the opposite and turn in and meet ourselves
Yep.
And there we can start to feel our bodies. We can start to feel the warmth of our blood pumping through our system. And we can start to feel that relief. And as soon as you feel that relief, you know you're on your way.
Hmm. I love that. But the two things I really pulled out of that was be easy with yourself.
Yeah.
Great advice. And not
Totally.
something to push against. Yes, you're
Yeah.
allowed to do that. And yes, it's fruitful in ways that
Yeah.
you don't even know. And the second thing I love that you said, be honest with yourself. So tell the truth about yourself to yourself. I always tell people the universe is a completely, it's a benign entity in, in the sense that like
It is.
it has no intelligence outside of all intelligence, meaning it can do nothing but match you. So
Yeah.
it's not, I don't believe that it's destined by morality. I don't think it's guided by some ethical hierarchy. I think that the universe matches what it's mirrored with. And so one of the things that I love about telling the truth about yourself to yourself is congruency, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
the, when I turn and face and just say, you know what, right now I'm feeling X,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
nothing to fix, nothing to solve, nothing to release, nothing to integrate, but acknowledge, right? There's this
Mm-hmm.
acknowledgement that has to happen. And now the universe can go, oh, I get it. Yeah, that is what you are. Great. Now what do you want to do? Anything?
Mm-hmm.
Because I can, do you want me to feed that? Do you want me to release it? Do you want me to engage with it? Do you need more opportunities to play with it? Tell me where to show up and I'll show up.
You're like, no,
Yeah.
we're good.
Hopefully you're like, no, but no. Some of
Yeah.
us are like, I just want to pour a little bit more salt into this one first.
Yeah. Right. I want to make sure I really get this lesson here.
Yes.
Well, and
Awesome.
I think that's the healing response for so many of us, because I think that if, amongst my clients, colleagues, and friends, those people who really had that level of contact and reflection from their family growing up is quite rare.
Hmm.
And so more the norm is, be who you are not, or from parents, I need you to be someone that I need you to be.
Yeah.
Right. Where there's that, that narcissistic attachment of please reflect me
Mm-hmm.
from the parent, because I actually don't know who I am. Right. And so that's actually the parent's work to do, that they are projecting onto the child. And so then the child doesn't get that level of connection, that level of contact where they actually know their own truth and they know themselves. And so
Yes.
that's why as adults, you would do that healing work. And so that's why that's the 101 of turn towards what you're feeling, admit it, meet yourself in that place. It's okay. It will move. It is, in fact, if you do that exercise, it is guaranteed that that energy will move. That is
Mm-hmm.
how the energy moves, by being met.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Literally the frozen block will start to open and move and shift. And that's why people take deep breaths. That's why people have emotional releases in energy healing, because you're hitting the exquisite, anger is the hardness over sadness,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like when we can just take a deep breath into our anger and get underneath the sadness, that's how we release. And that's
Mm-hmm.
not true for, every single wounding or trauma, but generally.
Generally. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, I want to switch gears a tiny bit. I have this
Yeah.
whole list of wonderful questions, none of which I've asked you yet.
Great.
I didn't say this was going to be an organic. We'll just see what happens.
Yeah.
Kind of
I mean,
conversation.
there's so much to talk about,
There's a
really,
lot to talk about, and
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about.
there's so much that I know about you and your work that I want to crack open through questions. But this is, the beauty of this
Yeah.
style, is we get to just have a conversation.
Yeah.
So I want to switch gears and talk about vulnerability and visibility in business. And it's something that is not new for a lot of our members and myself and yourself, but it's something worth talking about and pointing to and just having some revelation around. The question I have for you is, what is the cross section for you between vulnerability, or what I would also consider visibility? So like truly letting yourself be seen, and your purpose.
I think that in being vulnerable, so for me, being vulnerable is having done my own work, knowing where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
And then also, I think the cross section starts to happen in knowing exactly why
Mm.
I'm being vulnerable. Because you don't just want to be vulnerable as a point of drama or just for the sake of it, especially with, you know, social media and so many people who have the ability, or where there's the possibility for thousands to see you without really any context.
Yeah.
Right. So when I talk about vulnerability and when I teach it, you want to make sure, especially if it's your own like personal story or personal experience,
Mm-hmm.
that that it's healed enough inside of yourself so that you can talk about it without getting swept away.
Hmm.
Right? If you're doing a talk, if you're doing a workshop, it's okay to show emotion. What's very uncomfortable for everyone, frankly, is if you're breaking down inside yourself
Hmm.
in front of your people, not able to hold yourself anymore, right? There's more work to do around that for you. And that's when you take that, you know, to your own process and to your own sessions with your own supervisor, coach,
Hmm.
healer, that kind of a thing.
Yes.
One way that someone described it to me was, you know, wading in like to your waist to like a strong river, or even to
Mm-hmm.
your calves, but that you don't want to go up to your neck because you'll get swept away.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's an important way to sort of, you know, start talking about vulnerability, make sure that it's something that you are, that it's still close to you and you're still telling the truth about your own experience, because there's a lot of energy there. Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like fire and passion, and people can really feel that. And so I think the cross section of was it vulnerability and purpose?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Is why are you being vulnerable? Why are you sharing this with people? How does it matter for your work, the work that you do with your clients? How does it matter for them? Will they see a part of their own process in it? Will they see themselves in it? Is there a place where you haven't been telling the truth? You know, and I just came up against this with my own business, you know, where you haven't been telling the full truth about what you do, about what you hold dear,
Yeah.
about why you're doing this, about what is really precious for you in the work, because that's where the energy is, right? Versus what you thought people wanted to see, or who you thought you should be, or just
Yeah.
sort of this path, right, that you were going along.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I know for a lot of the people that I hang out with or, you know, love to have around me in my work, you included, and a lot of the members inside of our community, um, business is a convenient like outpost for us to walk our purpose at, you know, full-time pace, right? Like
Totally.
we wouldn't choose entrepreneurship for the sake of entrepreneurship, I don't think. I think it has given us this really incredible doorway to not be medicine men and medicine women by night, but by day also. And so
Yeah.
we don't have to like spend the majority of our energy uh, fledging around and trying to make cash. We get to do this all the time, and it becomes this
Yeah.
really beautiful influx of energy and resource. But that means that our purpose can so quickly, or our visibility can so quickly, our inner processes become the very exposed pieces of our work that we stand on. You know, like our wounds can become our marketing, and our stories can become our like plight for why people should hire us. And I think that gets messy, and yet we have to demonstrate our humanity. So does that make sense? Like that
Yeah. Well,
intersection is incredible,
yeah.
and it can be a slippery slope.
Well, and so one of the things that I hold for myself, and certainly one of the things that I teach, is like, what's your mission through your work? Like, what is your stand? And when I say that, my next question is, what is it? What is your stand for yourself? And what is your stand for your clients, for the world? And what do you want to see more of created in the world through you doing your work and through your business? And so I think that's where when you combine vulnerability with that, it becomes not this sort of sappy, weird, dramatic thing where you're like oversharing and people can just kind of feel the discomfort of like, I think she's just doing it because she was told she was do it, or because she should do it, or because that's like, I'm like, this just doesn't feel good. But it's like, you know, part of how we serve is based on our own experiences, right? It's not entirely like that our experience is every client's experience, because that's totally not true at all. But part of our passion of how every single individual shows up is based on what we've been through and what we've healed.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And that brings us our uniqueness. Every single person, you get to bring, you know, your passion and your uniqueness. And so that's where it's like, from your experience, that feeds into your stand as well, you know. And it could be, the question that's coming to mind is like, I don't know, this isn't perfect, but like, if this happened to you, or if you had this experience, like, you want to make sure that the people who also are having this experience, you know, get to the other side of it, get healed, you know, get their lives back, get their connection to themselves, their creativity, their core light, like all of that, you know, and perhaps to make sure that that doesn't happen anymore in the world, right? Depending on what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And so that's what I mean by stand, you know. It's like, what is and when you really get underneath, and you have to, the thing about vulnerability is that in order to be vulnerable in front of, you know, anyone, you have to have hit that within yourself already. Right. And so you're looking inside and seeing, you know, what part of this is the engine that's going to have me show up, so that like the how gets clearer and clearer and clearer, you know. And of course, if you're up against something that's real, you need to do the healing work around it. But and I know you know this profoundly, there are so many things in our day to day that are sort of like the little scary details, or like the little pain in the ass details, or, you know, whatever that is, where when you're really connected to the engine of your stand, your deep why, you know. And the stand is, for me, it's a deeper why. It's a more stoked engine. It's just this, like, nothing's going to hold you back from delivering your message and from doing what you do. When you're really connected to that, all of those little details, they sort of fall away. Like, you just show up for it and you push through in a way that's healthy, in a way that you need to. And then again, I always want to stress, like, if you come up against something that's too big, don't bulldoze past that, because it's going to keep coming up until you look at it, right? Do the inner work. But when you're deeply connected to that stand, it's easier. You're still, your heart's still pounding, right?
Yep.
As you stand up to speak, or, you know, as you hit live now on Facebook Live or whatever, like, your heart's still pounding, but there's no way. Like, if you think the way that I do it, it's like, if I think about, because nobody's telling me to do any of this or not. Right. That's the crazy part. But if I think about, if I get to the end of this day and I let myself off the hook and don't do this, how am I going to feel?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no way. And how am I going to feel when I do it? I'm going to feel amazing, you know?
Yes, I do know. And I love what you just said about the how, about the how is this distractible force, and it feels like just buzzards all around, like those little tiny gnats, like those little fruit flies, you know, that you just kind of bat away. But, you know, there's some necessity to the how, because it feels like our bridge from in here to all of out there. Right. And we have done such a great job. And by great, I'm being a little sarcastic. Great job in business of making us feel like the only way that you get to succeed is by anchoring into not only the right how, but the perfected, impersonal how. And I think it costs us a lot. I think it energetically sensitive, empathetic, service-oriented people who are those healers by day and night, the people that are using business as a platform, because thank goodness we have that opportunity in this time. That's a really fast burnout road to just be trying, because we digest all of it, right? Not every how is ethical. Not every how is congruent. Not every how is integral. There's a lot of hows and strategy for business that will break your heart wide open, and not in a loving way.
Yeah.
And so part of getting really clear on, okay, this is not going to stop, but I would just love to be able to look up at all the opportunity and see the like 3 or 4 bright opportunities and objects and say that one, and that one. And then
Mm-hmm.
just go and trust that that's going to deliver me because they pointed themselves out to me. And I do think what you're saying when you're connected to that engine, like that,
Mm,
who am I in this work? What is my mission? And what am I committed to no matter what happens? That will usually, at least it has for me, told me how to pick out and which ones to leave alone. Just as important.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I would take a guess that for all of us who are, soulpreneurs, right? Like
Mhm.
deeply connected to spirit, deeply connected to, wanting to do our passion, right? As a business in the world, we're doing it because we want to, if we don't already have it, we want to cultivate that close connection with our creativity.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
and creativity can look like a million different things. I mean, my business is highly creative. I feel like your business is highly creative. Just look at everything you have behind you. It's gorgeous, you know?
See my
And so,
neuroses with my
and
color
so,
coded books.
oh, I have them. Same.
Yes.
um,
Yes.
and
Creative.
so whether it's like, and that's something that I actually, in the very, very beginning, I didn't know. I didn't know about the work. I didn't know about myself as a practitioner. And I didn't know that spirit was going to lead me into a place where I was going to be confronted with a lack of the kind of success that I thought that I was going to have in moments by following certain external hows,
Yes.
and have to stop and have to look back inside and
Yes.
find, what is my authentic expression? How would
Mhm.
I do this? What am I really doing? Why am I doing this?
Mhm.
And I think that's, yeah, if I could just look back at myself 10 years ago. Well, I don't know, because I picked up Barbara's books because it's like energy healing. It was so damn cool. It's like,
Yeah.
I want to do this. This is so cool. And that at the time, thank God, was way enough
Mm.
of a why. And it continues to be.
Yep.
I work
Yeah.
I work online, right? And I live here in Santa Cruz, and I just put a post out that I'm opening a couple days a month my hands-on
Mm.
healing practice here in Santa Cruz. Why? Simply because I love to do it, and I'm aching to put my hands on people in
Yeah.
hands-on healing again,
Yeah.
and so that will never ever leave me, the
Yeah.
passion.
I think one of the turning points in my business was when, and I'll share this because I think you're in a similar place, was when I
Mm-hmm.
stopped assuming that I was supposed to just get it. Like everyone got it, and I wasn't allowed to the party until I got it. And there was some magical just like getting it that I didn't understand. So, but as soon as I got that, then it was all going to be good. And instead, when I decided to, instead of get it, but question it all in a, like a very loving way, but to hold every
Yeah.
Instagram, Facebook, summits, Tony Robbins, like holding up all of these things I had just assumed were on a pedestal for a reason, and went, what do
Yeah.
you like? Tell me what you're about. Can you show me what you're really about so I can decide if I want to come along or not? And realizing like, oh shit, like, yep, you and I are not going to get along. You and I, there's a place for us, but we need to find it. You and I,
Mm-hmm.
nope, we're done. Like I learned what I
Mm-hmm.
needed to learn. But I think as a business owner, you have to empower yourself to make that choice and to say, I have the right to question the ways and the means by which I'm going to express myself, because it affects how people come into the work. And that I will stand
Mm-hmm.
behind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's why I hired you. I wanted to actually talk about this a little bit because you were speaking to kind of our dance,
Yeah.
and what I was doing, which I think people probably do with me too, is I was just checking you out.
Yeah.
How does she be? How does she do this? Does it resonate? Is it real?
Mm.
And is it real? And it was real. It was totally real.
Yeah.
And then it
It
was just a
makes
matter of,
it breaks my heart that so much of what we have been led by, it's not that it wasn't real, but I think it was born from impersonal or disconnected place, which has like a lack of validity. It has a lack of realness. So then we as business owners cozy up to it and go, why don't I feel connected to this? Or why does this feel too good to be true? Or this was too good to be true. And actually that pathway or that teacher, that mentor, that program did royally hurt me because they
Mm-hmm.
weren't true. They weren't connected. They weren't grounded.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't rooted. And then you come up against someone who is, and I have found that I have had to hold my ground more than ever before as I'm establishing trust with people, because there's like this really small window. And if you don't show up in this consistent way over time and almost like have to just demonstrate, I'm not going anywhere. I'm
Yeah.
not false. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not false. I'm not going, I'm not false.
Mm-hmm.
And then people go, oh, okay, you're legit. Cool. And then it's like, no problem. But so much of what we're doing as, I think, service providers is maintaining this level of, I'm not going anywhere and I'm not false. And however, which way you can do that, right? And get behind that for yourself, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah. I mean, I agree 100,000,000%, and really, healing 101, and I mean that in like every sense of the world, of the word, and especially for service providers, coaches, it's connection, it's contact.
Yeah.
It's so simple, and it's the most profound thing that we can give to one another. And I think that I've certainly had the experience that you were speaking to in other programs, where I think that was probably a method that worked for that person, that coach, and then they sort of turn around and they teach just sort of that exact thing
Mm-hmm.
without meeting the participants, because it's a huge program, or because they didn't really get that deeper training, frankly,
Yeah.
of how to
Yeah.
really connect with
Yes.
people when they are, too scared to move on, or they're too confused, or they're too much, there is a freaking trauma in the way, and you really
Mm-hmm.
like, I do think that it's a huge disservice to not offer that next level of service, which is that contact and that connection.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to be like the working interdimensionally with as an energy healer or anything like that, but just to
Mm.
slow it down and be there,
Yes.
actually be
Yes.
there,
Yes.
and actually be, help them walk across the bridge to the thing that they are hiring you to help them get, right?
Mhm.
You're actually showing them the way by leading them deeper into themselves.
Yeah. I think it actually, you're pointing out one of what I hope is one such opportunity for light workers in the coming years of
Mm-hmm.
as the information age comes to a close and this new dawn of authenticity begins to crack open. That's what I think is coming. We are craving slowness because we can't
Yeah.
figure each other out at this pace. It's just like zooms by us and there's no
Yeah.
contact. Like I don't see a person, I just see your delivery,
Yeah.
right? But I'm hungry for the humanity in you. So
Mm-hmm.
can we just like take all of that garbage that you're spouting off and can I just see you? Are you willing to show me who you are? And I
Mm-hmm.
think the
Mm-hmm.
the coaches and healers and guides and practitioners who are able to really go to that place inside themselves, right? We have to go
Mm-hmm.
there first.
Totally.
There's such immense opportunity on the horizon for us because people are
Mm-hmm.
hungry for contact, like you said, something that I think we forgot how to do,
Mm-hmm.
ironically. Ironically. Okay. I do have a question about marketing I want to ask you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Something that I think our members would really appreciate just having a discussion about. Um, it has to do with social media, good old
Mm-hmm.
social media.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for those who don't resonate with what we would consider modern marketing tools, such as social media? And there's a lot of other
Mm-hmm.
modern marketing tools, but that's one that just feels so top of mind. What
Mm-hmm.
advice do you have for those of us who just don't get along with those
Mm-hmm.
those those
Mm-hmm.
bits?
Well, I would say first and foremost, if you are willing to sort of even just play with it at all, right? Just still even hold it in the palm of your hand as you were just doing, right? So if you're willing to just hold it in the palm of your hand and look at it and talk to it, I would say drop all expectation of what it needs to be, or especially of who you need to be inside of those platforms, right?
Yes.
Inside of Facebook or inside of Instagram. I don't actually even have a Twitter account. I have zero interest in Twitter, right? And that's not a problem for me, right? I think maybe
Yeah.
someone else would be like, you're missing out on huge opportunities not having a Twitter account. But the thing is that like there's zero call.
Mhm.
So I'm not going to churn my energy and ultimately betray myself, right? Because that's really what it would be. I mean, that sounds a little dramatic, but really that's what it is. It's like getting on something that I have zero interest in doing. Really, it's all about following your pleasure current. So is there something inside of Instagram or something, Facebook is kind of crazy these days, right? But people still use it.
Mhm.
Instagram has been this like precious place where we can show like beautiful pictures and do great captions and, and now that's growing bigger and bigger. So is there a place where you can land, inside of social media that just feels like you, where
Yeah.
you are actually, speaking to what you were just talking about, where you are actually just sharing from your heart
Mhm.
about what you do and why you do it and what your stand is and what some of the transformation is, and sharing your day or sharing something beautiful or sharing an inspiration, just finding that pulse of creativity from within and
Mhm.
using it as a creative platform.
Mm.
Is there any pleasure in that,
Yeah.
for you at all?
Yeah.
Not that it has to be this huge crazy thing where you're like working every day to follow people and then they follow you and you're commenting, and like if you want to get around to all of that and if you want to start to build your following and that kind of a thing, like great, go for it. But if you're not quite there, is there some authentic creativity that you can find in that, and
Yeah.
just to share yourself. And
Yeah.
just even in that level of visibility, people will know you exist.
Mhm.
On some level, they'll know what you do. And then there's natural engagement. So it's all about grounding into really a point of safety, right? Like first, second, third chakra stuff. Like,
Mhm.
just
Yes.
keeping it slow, like we were
Yes.
just saying.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. I love what you said about does it have any kind of authentic pleasure for you? Can it be
Yeah.
creative? And to relinquish any expectation you have, even going in, of how you're supposed to show up or demonstrate something of yourself in that space, and find the play in it, because it can be very playful.
Yeah.
And your work is probably playful in I think it's deeply creative. So can you just
Mhm.
share some of that creativity?
Mhm. Yeah, and start small. Like you don't have to like take all your proverbial clothes off in the beginning. You don't ever have to take your proverbial clothes off, but
Yeah.
stay like keep it like
Yeah.
start with your first building block,
Yeah.
right? And then build your with everything. Like start small and then build on top of that and just keep following what actually feels right and
Mm.
authentic for you. And I heard a great piece of advice, unfollow anyone who makes you feel, when you see their post or when you see their account, who makes you feel less than, or who makes you feel that you need to be someone else or be doing something. If it's inspiring in that sense, like, oh, I want to be doing something because I'm inspired to take action. But
Yeah.
if you're feeling less than at all, unfollow those people. It's not their fault. It's no one's fault. It's just that you really, social media it's totally by choice.
Yeah.
And so you want to be feeding yourself, throughout your day
Yeah.
with truly, truly supportive people and posts. And
Hmm.
that will make your experience more pleasurable.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
agree. I feel similar about Twitter. I find Twitter is like
Yeah.
I think Twitter is like the 8-lane highway that goes through downtown Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I nope, no interest. I'd prefer to be somewhere out in the country on some backcountry road, taking a picture of some cow on the side of the street. But but there are some people who they're like,
Hmm.
yes, I am going to pummel through downtown LA, and I'm going to be in
Yes.
the car with the top down, and I'm going to have all the things to say, and all the speakers are going to be up, and that is for them. And so
Yeah.
again, respecting and telling the truth about yourself to yourself. And I love coming back to what you said in the very beginning of be easy with yourself. If this is a
Yeah.
place you want to hang out, do it in a way
Yeah.
that's useful.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and even in that, if you're using social media to attract your ideal clients, if you're on Twitter but you don't resonate with Twitter, you're
Mm-hmm.
not likely to find really your ideal clients on that 8-lane highway. If you're not enjoying being there, it's not going to be a great match.
Yeah.
You enjoy being in the
Yeah.
more creative world of Instagram,
Yes.
and it's going to be a better match, really.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
can really, really trust yourself, really honor what it is that you want to do. It's okay. Right. And it's not necessarily taught
No, it's
that,
not.
that what it is that you want to do is okay. And there's nuances to that. So that's why I sort of say that carefully, but you
Yeah.
can trust yourself in that sense.
Yes. Yes. I think the sooner you do, the more joy you're going to have. And I
And that's
think
what it's all about.
right. And I think that what your work will become has room to surprise you, and you don't actually know. You may be headed for path A and think that's the thing that's going to light you up. And then these little like trickles from path B come in and you realize
Mhm.
that's actually where I belong. And it's not at all what I thought it would be, or made up of what I thought it would be made up of, or it's not taking me remotely up the mountain I thought it was going to, but I'm so much happier. So we can fight that, or we can resolve to that
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
let it be easy. It's because business isn't easy. There's nothing easy about it. It's one big creative problem solving
Totally.
problem every single day, and there's always something new to solve. And so if you're not enjoying even remotely all the little bits and details of that, it's good. It's already
Mm,
hard. Like, we don't need to make
yeah.
it harder on
Mm.
ourselves, right?
And I will, sort of answer the second part of that question, which is if you really don't at all want to touch social media, like
Mhm.
it's just this one big, huge aversion. What do you want to touch?
Yeah.
What do you, if that's not your thing, what is your thing?
Yeah.
Is it meeting with people in person? Do you want to launch a meetup?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to make phone calls or, send out handwritten notes or offer free clinic days, or what is your jam?
Yeah.
What is your pleasure of meeting people, sharing your work, getting out there? What feels fun and comfortable, and like, yes, I want to do that. Like,
Yeah.
yes, I want to lean into that. I want to create the structure for that. I want to do that. So you can just really ask yourself. It could be, I don't know why this is coming in right now in this conversation, but I'm going to speak it because it's in like my mental vision. But it could be like that you love to knit, and
Mhm.
that you have like a crochet group, but it's like crocheting for crusher entrepreneurs or something like that. Right. And then
Yeah.
in that, like, that's super duper your ideal client. It's like, oh yeah, because it's like, well, why do you resonate with other people who also love to knit? Like,
Mhm.
what are the distinctions of using your hands and the yarn and then this and the sound of
Yeah.
the needles? Like what is the matchup there? And that's where business gets really nonlinear. And I know you're super
Mhm.
familiar with that, where you just kind of trust these hits of like, yeah, I think that somehow also my ideal client are foodies, right? And I'm saying
Mhm.
that actually personally, like, I think
Mhm.
that's true. I'm a huge, and I know foodie is like thrown around, but seriously, like I've loved to eat forever and ever and ever, and delicious food in New York City for 13 years, like the whole
Mm.
thing. And what's the distinctions there? It's that they know what they like. Um, and there's a sophistication there. There's a discernment there.
Mm.
Right. And so I think that translates also to to other parts of your life, where who you are, what you like and don't like, and what you're going for. And then you might
Mm.
need some assistance in getting there.
Mm.
So again, it's so creative. And I think the more that we can give ourselves and each other permission to really just follow, like, what are those impulses that are coming in,
Yeah.
and why are they coming in? And what happens if you follow it? Maybe there's someone in your knitting group who's going to be your publicist, or, you
Mhm.
know what I mean? Like, you just never, ever know.
Mhm.
And so I encourage everyone, like, if there's something that's been on your heart or on your mind to pursue, just do it and see what happens.
Mm. I was going to ask you for any advice or insight that you can give our fellow members, that I feel like you just did. Like, that is, and if you want to expand on that as I make that question more open-ended, but I feel like what you just shared is so on point, and I
Yeah.
happily reiterate, yes, it's a creative process, and not just as you're not the only creator. There's a co-creation going on, and
Yeah.
there's these amazing things in your corner, like serendipity and synchronicity and intuition. And you don't know, like, you can't
Mhm.
rationalize all the information coming at you, but our intuition gets to pick up on it and say, nudging you in this way or that way or whatever, go for it. And
Mhm.
sometimes it's a flat line and there's nothing there. And sometimes it's just the right nudge or introduction or experience that you don't get to measure. You don't have to measure. And
Mm-hmm.
if I were to look back on all the funny little connections and contact points and threads of my work that got me where I am, I wouldn't be
Oh my
able to
God.
name.
Right.
There's millions. Like,
Totally.
and I don't have to know that. I just get to say, hey, intelligent universe, let's go. Like, just thread it out for me. Here's what I
Yeah.
think I would like to experience. Let's just play and let's see what
Mm-hmm.
happens.
Mm-hmm. I think the other piece that I would add to answer your question is that there's a difference in how you feel, and there's a difference in the frequency between making something happen or feeling like you need to make something happen, or a request of the universe, an ask, or trying to figure it out or grind out the problem,
Mhm.
and receiving.
Yes.
And so I think that if you have asked, because listen, we're all really good at asking, right? So if you've asked once, you can
Yeah.
know that you've asked. If you've asked once, you've probably asked 5 million times. That's me, right? So if you're still asking about this thing, you can know that, the universe has heard you, right?
Mhm.
Spirit has heard you. And just trust that,
Yeah.
and if you feel like you need to get it more specific one more time, and
Mm.
take pen to paper and, enumerate it, make a list, put numbers right to the request or whatever it is, then do that for your own satisfaction. And certainly do that. Spirits like loves details, right?
Mhm.
Do that, close the book, put it aside. And then for your subsequent meditations or your subsequent contemplations, open every cell of your body, do that detachment exercise, or detach in your own way, and just receive.
Mm.
And I think that goes hand in hand with staying gentle with yourself. I think the magic of caring for yourself and really flooding yourself with self-love,
Mm.
that's another way to get into the receiving mode.
Yeah.
And really, it's from that place where all of the creative solutions, all of your ideas, all of the co-creation with spirit is going to come. And when you're really, when you really get to that place in your business where you're on the edge of your own creation, it's like you are taking that step and trusting
Mhm.
that the bridge is going to appear. And that is why we do this. The exhilaration of that, and the satisfaction of that, and the celebration of what that creation, becomes, and what it looks like and what it feels like in the process. That is why, whether we know it or not, right?
Mhm.
That's why we're doing this, as well as the service. Because here's the thing, I feel like 99.99% of us know in session that we would not really rather be anywhere else, right? There might be like a couple of other places that we would rather be,
Mhm.
but that's really like our happy place. So that's not something that we need help around.
Mm.
It's all of this other stuff. It's like, how can we find that level of satisfaction and joy and creation outside of session as well?
Yeah.
Because that is at least 50% of the business.
Mhm.
And so that's what I'm speaking to. Inside session, everyone who's listening to this, you guys, I know you have it covered. I know you do,
Yeah.
because that's what you came here to do.
Yes.
And I hear so many people saying like, why can't I just show up to session? It's like, well, until you can hire a team to do that for you, you have to do it for yourself. And there are initiations and there are learnings in the process of
Yep.
showing up for your own business and building your own business. And how do you talk about your
Mhm.
business in the world?
Mhm.
How do you find that confidence connected with
Yeah.
vulnerability,
Yeah.
connected with service in your marketing? You grow as a human being in ways that you would never expect.
Yeah.
And you came here for the wholeness of it. And so really that's a whole part of yourself that you'd be cheating
Mhm.
yourself out on if you had someone else just sort of take it all away from you and do it. And I'm not saying that eventually you can't hire a team to do it, but in the beginning it's like, embrace it, because you have to anyway. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Yep. Yep. It's always going to be there, whether you get started today or tomorrow. So may as well get
yeah,
started today.
yeah, yeah. Start
Yes.
today.
Yep. And be
Yeah,
easy with yourself. Yes. Awesome. Oh man, Sam, I could keep going down the rabbit hole with
yeah,
you. There's so
yeah.
much more to share and to be shared. And if you are watching or listening to this and you are just riding on the wavelength of what Sam is sharing, I invite you to check out her work. Sam, what is it that you're working on for 2019 that we get to come play with you in?
Wow. So that's a great question. I'm like, that's coming to my world. So I have I have two basic ways that you can come into my practice and actually work with me. The first is my private practice, and I enroll that twice a year. And the second is my group course. And so the private practice is 6 months, the group course is 4 months. And we are in January having this conversation. So I'm actually enrolling that group course right now. So the next time that that's going to come around is going to be later in the spring.
Okay.
And then I'm on social media as Sam Ibarguen, Instagram at Sam Ibarguen. But I would say if you want to sort of be in my world and get on my newsletter and get into that community, come to my website. My website is IGWell. So it's IGWELL. My business is called Integrated Wellness. So that's where that comes from. And then just go to where you can download the free meditations. And when you download the meditations, you'll get on my list. And that's where you really get the most contact with me. I offer a lot of free stuff, resources, videos, meditations, and then you'll get the hits for when I'm enrolling and when I'm inviting people into my practice a couple times a year that happens.
Great. Awesome.
Yeah.
I'll put all the notes down below. I'll put a link to her
Great.
website, her programs, as well as her Instagram account. She is
Great.
one that I recommend following. I think you're doing such a beautiful job of
Thanks.
bringing that creativity forward and how you share and how you show up. And like I said, tenacious and discerned and clear and yummy transmissions. And I appreciate all of it. Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Well, I appreciate you too, Andrea, how you show up in the world. It's truly, truly inspiring. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, guys, have a lovely rest of your February.
Yes.
Go check out all of the things in Sam's world. I highly recommend it. You will not regret it. And we'll see you guys in a month.